This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. I've been diving into a juicy article that came out a couple of days ago from the Daily Beast called Desperate Royals Tried to Censor Leaked King's Funeral Plans. Now, it had me thinking about the royal family's obsession with controlling the narrative. Mostly PR propaganda, if you ask me. And in this video, I want to break down what I think about this piece, trying to get an understanding if the palace's PR machine is really all about manipulation. So this article coming out of California is about a leak to the Telegraph about King Charles's funeral plans codenamed London Bridge, which include Harry and Meghan, despite their fallout with the royals, having a very prominent and center role. So word on the street, according to this article, is the palace apparently went into panic mode to shut it down. Now, I think the article does a great job exposing how the palace tries to bully the media into submission. It talks about Tobin, the king's communications guy, who reportedly had a meltdown and used a WhatsApp group to pressure the Royal Rota. You know, that exclusive club of journalists covering the royals, not to touch the story. I put good money on it not being the first time that this has been done by the palace. That's classic palace intimidation, trying to control the narrative to keep their image squeaky clean. We know for a fact Harry and Meghan have a group chat with media. It's likely they're not just doing PR, they're running a propaganda machine purposely to dictate what we see and think. The article also drops a bombshell that the leak came from inside the palace. That suggests either total chaos or someone deliberately stirring the pot, which pokes holes in the royal family's closed, united front. And the fact that Harry and Meghan are in these funeral plans, well, we could look at this as a PR stunt, like the palace is trying to look like they're all about this reconciliation and building this path for Meghan and Harry, or we could also see it from the side of Harry and Meghan leaking this information that they may have been holding on to for quite some time to drop at just the right moment. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to who would have leaked this information to the Telegraph. I mean, it could be Harry and Meghan. It could be the palace alongside with Harry and Meghan. I mean, look, we just saw Tobin and Meredith Maines together. You can't really be too sure. But when you dig further into the article and you see how emotional and how much personal drama is included, specifically around Tobin's meltdown and the efforts to suppress Vicky Ward's article in the Telegraph. And you can visibly see that suppression when you try to look for the article, as well as no other journalists had reported on it. Everything that was said in the Daily Beast does turn out to be true, at least when it comes to the actions that the palace took to go into censorship overdrive. Now, could this be part of the Sussexes' strategy once again to prove that Harry was right? That there are claims of a secret agreement between the royals and the press, and that this is just a chilling reminder that the monarchy has sway over the media? I think I'm beginning to see that a lot clearer now. So what this story did was paint a picture of a system where future access to the royal family came at the cost of being silent about this current story. The public's right to know, it seemed, was secondary to the palace's need for controlling the narratives. Now, on the surface, the defense of the palace argued that not only was this story insensitive, but also premature. Its details that were in these funeral plans were unpolished and speculative, while the king fought for his health. And I would have to agree. I think that writing a piece on King Charles's funeral plans, I think is distasteful, in my opinion. Now, if this were a one-off case of shielding a human being, a man, not just a monarch and his brand, from sensationalist vultures, I could understand the palace's panic. But this isn't the first time they've threatened access. Remember what the palace did to ABC News' Amy Robach in New York?
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story.
As you can see, it's not. So the line between privacy and censorship is blurred, and the palace's heavy-handed response casts a shadow over the principles of freedom of the press, or a free press in the UK. In the end, the silence of the press spoke louder than the story itself, which is a testament to the monarchy's enduring power to shape what the world should be allowed to hear. I believe Tobin could have simply expressed that his intent was to show compassion and left it at that, without resorting to threats or controlling when information should be allowed to be shared. It's just an opinion, and if free speech and press freedom exists, they must include room for the unsavory speech as well. The palace has had a history of playing narrative control games, as seen during Meghan's alleged pregnancy when journalists were barred from questioning or even mentioning the topic. This pattern of manipulation is evident, yet this article fails to connect any of these dots. It's not just Meghan Markle being obsessed with controlling the narrative. The royals are equally complicit, often resorting to propaganda-like tactics. In 2019, the palace, including those working for Harry and Meghan, collaborated with big tech to silence and censor voices behind the scenes, including Americans who dared question the pregnancy, who dared question who made who cry, and who dared question Meghan Markle and her lies about paying for her university. This practice of suppressing dissent, I believe, is still ongoing. The palace's influence and ties to tech giants should not be overlooked nor escape scrutiny, particularly in any U.S. investigation involving Prince Harry. Now, I absolutely believe that this story of the palace having a meltdown is true, because not only do you see this article by Victoria Ward nowhere to be found, and the people who reported this scoop about the palace and chaos behind the scenes came out of the United States. So use some common sense and draw your own conclusion. It's pretty obvious that this came from the Montecito duo, and I'm guessing that the reason why they did this was to draw attention back to the original article, because they want people to know that they are still very much a part of this family and that there is this possibility of reconciliation, and they are going to be going back come hell or high water. And I think by doing this now just brings up this article about the funeral plans and putting Harry and Meghan back into the spotlight as being a central part of this family, especially when that time comes, they're going to be there, or at least that's what they're trying to make everybody get used to, especially with all this other stuff that we have been seeing dropping about the king reconciling with Prince Harry. I really don't think that Tobin worked with the Sussexes to coordinate this stunt. I do believe that he had a bitch meltdown. Tobin, you see, is a staunch king loyalist, in my view. And I also think he's a petty little bitch. And I'm so glad that his behavior was exposed. Let me go ahead and share with you a personal story about my run-in with Tobin Andrea. If you could all take yourself back to Christmas Day 2022, Charles's first Christmas serving as king and his first ever Christmas speech. Like many of you, I was fully supportive of this new monarch and was looking forward to hearing the king give his first Christmas speech. So when Sky News Australia globally broadcasted this speech and posted it all over social media, I went ahead and shared it, unedited and without commentary, for my mostly American audience. If you could recall, it was a very dark and divisive time here in America, thanks to people like Meghan Markle. I thought the message was uplifting and unifying, especially on the day of baby Jesus being born. But then, Tobin struck. On Christmas Day, this asshole issued a copyright strike against my channel, which had, at the time, maybe 60,000 subscribers. I mean, I'm still a small channel, but I was even smaller 2 years ago. For those unfamiliar, a copyright strike on YouTube does a couple things and affects you in certain ways. For 90 days, you have this, I want to say, in the doghouse status, to where I do believe it does affect the algorithm and how your content gets pushed out. But also, for 7 days, you're not allowed to post videos. Now, if you are a creator and you receive one of these and you don't feel that it was justified, you have the option to contest it. And YouTube gives two separate paths. One, you can go ahead and choose the route by emailing the person that did raise the copyright strike on you, or you can contest it legally through the various legal channels that they provide for you. So normally, many creators go the route by emailing the person who chose to raise that copyright strike. And that's exactly what I went and did, because I didn't feel that it was justified. So on Christmas Day, I emailed Tobin. What followed was a brief but telling exchange. As you can see, this happened on Christmas at 11:33 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I write, "Hello, Tobin. Merry Christmas. I'm writing to you to ask for some grace in the copyright strike issued. I apologize for any misunderstanding, as I thought the King's speech, Queen Christmas speech, was public domain due to it pertaining to the sovereign people of the UK. I can formally contest it, but I figure I would contact you first per the recommendation of YouTube to seek resolution. I mean no offense, and I only uploaded it to share the message from the King to my audience who may not have access to TV. Many were grateful to hear his first speech and pay tribute to the late monarch, who is still dearly missed. In the spirit of Christmas, can you please retract the copyright strike, as I promised not to show the video? Thank you in advance, and wishing you and your family a blessed day." Now, as you can see, I wasn't being rude, or I wasn't being aggressive, or in any way combative about it. So I went ahead and sent this email at 11:30 a.m. Christmas morning. This was literally right after I had breakfast with my family and we opened presents, and then to find this email. Sure, did that ruin the morning? Absolutely. So after I sent it, I was hopeful that I was going to get a response and that I would be shown some grace, considering it was Christmas Day. 6.5 hours later, right before I sat down to have dinner, Tobin responds. And for a brief moment, I really did think everything was going to be okay until I opened it. Tobin replies at 5:57 p.m. East Coast Standard Time. "Thank you for your email and wishing you a very happy Christmas too. Regrettably, your actions in uploading an unauthorized copy of His Majesty the King's speech from Sky Australia was in breach of all transmission rights for online platforms, which meant that audiences globally would be able to view the content ahead of terrestrial broadcast timings in their home nations. As such, you were both in contravention of the legal rights on broadcasts and, more pertinently, jeopardized the personal enjoyment of millions of families outside of your territory for whom the 3 o'clock television and radio broadcast is a long-standing tradition. I will therefore be unable to waive the objection I had to raise with YouTube, and which needlessly spoiled my own Christmas Day and that of many other families outside of your domain. With thanks, Tobin." So imagine how I must have felt right before I was supposed to sit down with my family for dinner, that the King's senior communications secretary, literally reporting to the King himself, tells you that you ruined Christmas not only for him, but for so many others because of doing this, because of sharing this Christmas message. How would you guys feel? So after reading it, I went and I sat down with my family for dinner, and I couldn't help but start crying. Like, it didn't feel good to be told that I ruined Christmas, especially coming from the senior aide to the King. It was almost as if the King was telling me that directly. And I did take it a little personal. And the reason why, and I think I've shared this in the past with everyone, is that even though I am an American, my family was raised under the British rule. So even though I was living in America, my family still continued those customs and traditions, especially when it pertained to the Anglican Church. Needless to say that not only did it rub me the wrong way, but it also put a bad taste in my family's mouth after I told them this story. So yeah, that Christmas sucked, but the next day on Boxing Day, I figured that I would try just one more time and reply back to Tobin, pleading that he would reconsider. And I write on Monday, December 26th at 12:36 p.m., feeling hopeful. Tobin, thank you for your reply. This was an honest mistake, so please accept my apology for any stress this may have caused you yesterday, as it was not my intention to disrupt anyone's holiday enjoyment. I did not have any evidence of ruining a tradition, otherwise I would have pulled the video down. On the contrary, my subscriber feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and many were glad to see the King's first speech, since the majority of my subscribers are American and are in support of the family. It was an excellent, uplifting speech that we in America needed to hear during a time of madness that we're seeing in this country. While I understand the consequences for my actions, I don't believe it's fair that the same consequences were not extended to Sky News Australia, who was the original source of breaching the transmission platform rights by airing this globally. Their video remained up when, in my opinion, should have been pulled down along with mine. Sky News Australia posted it to the world, and it came up in my subscription at around 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 25th. There were others that had taken the speech and reposted it on other platforms, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, etc. I honestly would not have known this broadcast was a 3 p.m. tradition in the UK or in breach of transmission rights for public broadcasts in the UK, as I am an American and reside in the US. I'm not familiar with the transmission rights for online platforms set forth in UK law. I am governed by the FCC and follow the Communications Act of 1934. Telecommunications Act of 1996 when it pertains to public broadcasting transmission. This is an opportunity for me to learn more, and I will take the time to understand the parameters better. I see and respect your perspective. I hope you can forgive by weighing out the circumstances of the situation. I'm kindly asking you for some grace and reconsideration on this decision. I promise you that it will never happen again. Many thanks. That was the last communication that I had with Tobin. He did not reply, and he did not remove the strike. And so I ended up suffering the consequences. So for 7 days, I couldn't post, cutting off my livelihood and the ability to put food on my table. So I'm not sure if that strike had any effect on the algorithm, because during that time, that's when a select group of accounts like mine and Duchess of Sussex had been coded and deranked. In normal circumstances, that suppression would have been temporary. So our visibility online was like permanently suppressed. So when you ask, why isn't your number growing? Understand that that's what was going on. The interesting thing, though, is when I reached 100,000 subscribers, apparently YouTube creators are supposed to be awarded with a plaque. Well, I was denied that plaque because of this strike. So I hit 100,000 subscribers, I think in October of 2023. So when everybody was asking me if I received my plaque, I went ahead and inquired about it. And they said that I didn't qualify. And that's when I understood the rule that you had to be a year clean from whatever infraction that you had. So that would have made sense since I had the infraction in December of 2022. So I said, all right, well, I'll just wait till December, or I'll, ask again at the beginning of 2024. So I went back at the beginning of 2024 to inquire because I was in good standing for at least a year. There were no infractions or violations. And I was told that I did not qualify. So when I asked what the reason was, they wouldn't give me an answer. In fact, they went down the path of saying, well, it is on an individual case-by-case basis, and the reviewer can make the decision whether or not they award this to you. So even if you have the 100,000 subscribers, and even if you are in good standing, they can still turn you down. And I asked, why is my account not being awarded this so-called stupid plaque? And they wouldn't give me the answer as to why they chose not to do it, which leads me to believe that there are notes on this account, specifically giving direction to not advance or to grow this account. And we see that. We see that with the numbers. YouTube can make up all different excuses as to why nobody's watching your videos, but just from organic growth, you don't go from having consistent organic growth to all of a sudden a tremendous amount of decline, especially after the world knows that the Megxit accounts have been deranked. So obviously, they messed with the accounts. Now, some of you are probably sitting there and saying, well, why are you telling us this now, 2 years later? I'll tell you why. It's because I actually had respect for the king who just became monarch, and I did not want to draw negative attention towards this shitty incident. Yeah, I've never been one to just put out stories to get clicks, and that would have been exactly what it would have been done for. Today, I actually had a reason to bring that up because it's very relevant to what we are seeing going on with the palace and what they did with these journalists recently. I think we are all forgetting that the true king is Jesus. And while this demonic chaos being seen, British children being raped and abused by Islamists unfolds with the king turning a blind eye, he still claims to uphold his constitutional duty of fostering national unity and pride. So according to the constitutional duties of the head of state, one of the pillars is national unity, where it says bringing people and organizations together to respond to the needs of society, building our national identity, sense of unity, and collective pride. If Britain's national identity now includes the abuse of its girls, that identity is a shadow of its former self, okay? Why does Britain have to build a national identity? I thought Britain had its own national identity. It should be maintaining your national identity. But with these words and how they use it to manipulate the masses, you can read between the lines as to what's going on here. You might as well just say rebuilding our national identity, because essentially that is what's happening right now with these open borders and how society now has flipped to throw away Christianity as its core foundation to adopt this multi-faith garbage that can't exist with Christianity. And here we are. And you see the chaos and destruction that's happening. And you might say to yourself, well, why would the king be destroying his own reign by going along with all of this stuff? And that is a topic that I'm going to address in my next video because it is strategic in what is going on. You might think that the king is just neglecting his realms and looking the other way, but no, this is all intentional. And in tomorrow's video, you're going to see what is going on. Because with all this distraction and nonsense and noise and propaganda and, oh, we're just trying to do good for the earth and be kind to people, is a lot of horseshit. Tomorrow's video is going to make a hell of a lot of sense, especially why we saw what went on with Harry and Meghan and the king not doing a damn fucking thing. And that's because Harry is very much in alignment with what is going on. These hypocrites use the media to manipulate the masses. And it's clear this is what does happen with the palace. But I think it's time we all start waking up and understand that the king's agenda aligns with decades-long WEF schemes. I look forward to reconvening with you all on this topic, but let me know your thoughts on today's video. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.